Hi there. What I've got on the turntable today is a type of drone called a Cinewhoop. For those of you who don't know much about drones, the main feature that it has is this plastic guard called a duct that goes around all the propellers. And sometimes they're made out of other materials like carbon fiber, and smaller versions of this type of drone are called Cinewhoops. And Cinewhoops, because of these protections and other little features, are really good for people who are starting out, because you could crash into things around your house and won't cause too much damage. Contrast that with a drone that has an open propeller design, where there's just nothing between these spinning lawnmower blades and somebody's face. And you can kind of see where Cinewhoops are really quite appealing for people who want to fly in areas that are maybe, well, obviously you don't want to fly around a lot of people. That would be terribly bad and in most jurisdictions illegal. But if you're flying around property, or you're taking footage of like a closed or relatively tight interior space, then a drone like this is perfect. So you can see that Cine means cinema, obviously, and the goal is to put a camera on it. This one has an action cam, but you can put higher quality cameras on these things. They're fairly stable, and you can fly around in these tight areas to get the footage you need. Now, the one drawback of these is they have a bit of a bad reputation for the very feature that helps protect the blades. The ducts introduce a lot of aerodynamic instability if you're trying to do maneuvers that require any sort of acrobatics. So as a result, they have a bit of a bad rap, and I think in most cases it's a little undeserving, because if you just work around these limits, you end up with a drone that you can fly in tight areas and really beat it around quite a bit without as much fear. And because of the ducts, you actually have a better chance of recovery than if you were flying a open prop drone, and especially in an area that you're not familiar with. Anyhow, I'll shut up now and we'll go to the flight footage. Alright, so we're lifting off, and one thing you should notice right away is how shaky the footage might seem, especially when this drone is trying to do things like banks or whenever there's a speed change. This is just propwash. It's a fact of life with these Cinewhoops and any sort of whoop in general. But my point in this video is that when I flew this drone, I initially was gonna just sell it or give it away. I was sick of it, and like right here, actually, I was just making an adjustment in my goggles, and you can see it bouncing around because I'm inducing prop wash without really thinking. So now that I'm done changing my video transmit setting, I went back to flying again. And again, I was pretty sick of this drone until I did something the week prior where I grabbed every single one of my larger drones and flew them, all one after another. And I thought to myself, hey, you know, this thing handles pretty terribly. The prop wash was not something I noticed when I was new and starting out, but now it's just so obvious. But aside from the prop wash, it isn't so terrible. It handles poorly on corners, but it has a suitable amount of power, and I thought to myself, I should give this another chance. So I flew it today, and prior to flying this, I was actually thinking about, you know, this might be worth revisiting on a very serious level. So I really did sit and think about it for a little bit before I went in the air, that I should just try to push this a little harder and make it do things that would cause it to struggle a little bit, but not do things that are completely unfair. For example, I'm not going to try to do any rolls or loops or anything acrobatic. I'm just going to sort of throw it around against an obstacle course and see how it fares. And what I found was it was actually pretty good at this. Even though it handled terribly, it forced me to make the necessary adjustments to just try and work around the fact that it struggles around tight corners. I can feel the prop wash. If you watch the screen, anytime there's a little bit of shake, and you can hear it, the prop wash is interfering with any sort of altitude change. And sometimes there's not even an altitude change, and I can feel it. Now, specifically any descent, you really notice the problems with this type of drone. But the ducks worked in my favor. There's a few times where I kind of just brushed against one of the poles or a chain link or a tree, and this would have been a near catastrophic hit if I took this with a open bladed drone. I would have faced something far worse than prop wash. It would have been at times enough for just the props to get caught on something to either bring me down or completely knock me out of any sort of clean alignment. So this is probably the second time I've flown the drone in about 4 months, and I'm still sort of getting the hang of it, but I realized, hey, this is actually kind of fun, deliberately driving something that struggles around corners into corners. And right here, I think I hit some grass, and that little tree branch, that would have been enough to knock me almost to a crash if I was in an open-bladed drone. I keep hitting that same area all the time with my 5-inch, and I've lost, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 props just from that one little branch that keeps going downwards. So yeah, you can see it struggles around the corners, but it's forcing me to think a little bit more, and it's actually kind of fun driving something that feels like it's a wet loaf of bread. So I think right here I might have gone through those 2 trees to make that gap. Yeah, that little branch I was in front of it, I hit it a few times after I shot this video and just coasted right through it. If this was an open-bladed prop, I would have ended on my back. I keep hitting that same branch all the time. Yeah, that one right there. But with the Cinewhoop, I don't care, or rather this is a Cinewhoop. I've flown it with other types of drones, but with this Cinewhoop, I simply didn't care. I just basically floored it, and I'm not a great pilot, but I feel like I learn more when I'm just flying something which I don't really care about. And in the end, the ducts do their job with preventing, I guess, branch strikes. Over here, I was actually losing some reception. I was going to do an orbit in the middle, but I was getting really blocky video, so I pulled out of there. But yeah, I guess I forced myself to take some risks so that next week my plan, before the foliage starts to grow back in, I'm actually looking to fly right into that line of trees, that stand of trees that's in the back, and see if I can make my way through the woods. I've been overflying that section for some time and have identified a few areas where I can cut in, join the sort of informal walking trails that obviously I'm not going to do this when people are around and people have right of way. I would rather crash and ditch than even startle someone. But I also walked those trails too and wanted to just see what it felt like, what it feels like in a drone. So I think I'll do that next week. As you can see in this footage, the sun wasn't really out. Everything's kind of gray, and I've noticed that when the contrast is poor like this, even with a digital system, I struggle to see things like the branches. So I played it safe today. Plus, we had just received a whole ton of rain. The ground was basically like a bog. You can see how completely saturated with water it is, and I felt like it would be better to let things dry out. I actually walked that trail a little bit after I flew, and yeah, it was muddy. So I'm glad I passed up on that, and I'll save that for another day. Yeah, right there, it bumped into the tree. Kept going. If I hit that with an open-bladed prop, that strike would have been enough to flip me over potentially. I hit that pretty hard. Oh, there's a squirrel. I don't want to scare him, but I want to get around. Okay. Sorry, Mr. Squirrel, or Mrs., or Miss. But yeah, I hope this video just opens some possibilities for maybe other people like me who've got a Cinewhoop that just sits in the bag and doesn't get flown, and give it a chance. I mean, yeah, it handles like crap. It's not going to be your ideal choice to be flinging around, even in going from tree to tree like what I'm doing here. There you can see I'm getting some prop wash, and I'm struggling to stay up. I don't really know what happened there, but yeah, it was noticeable. But yeah, I give it a shot. You may find that just driving it around like a demolition derby car can be quite satisfying and fun. And if it improves your flying skills, great, all the better. So anyhow, thanks for watching, and I hope this helped again. Take care all.